All right, here we are, almost the night before Christmas. Trying to see, as they say, I guess who's been naughty and nice, if you will. But Geoff, thank you so much for joining us for our leadership series.
Well, thank you, Mark, for having me. Excited to talk to you.
No, it's truly our pleasure. And first of all, I'd like to wish you and your family, obviously, the best for the holidays. Happy, healthy, and great New Year.
Yeah, wonderful. Yes, it's right back at you. And with Christmas coming, it's clearly a key time for us here at Fisher Price.
I bet it is, and I'd love to hear more about that. Why don't we start with Geoff, if you would, introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, I'm Geoff Wlaker, and I'm the Executive Vice President for Fisher Price and Hit Entertainment, which is a division of Mattel, Inc. And currently, I run the Fisher Price business, which involves making, designing, creating all the toys that fall underneath the Fisher Price umbrella, as well as our Hit Entertainment division, which creates all the great TV shows that tie into all of our wonderful preschool properties.
It's got to be super exciting that you're actually making a big impact on people just by what you do.
Well, Fisher Price, it really stands for early childhood development. And we've been repositioning the company around that theme. And it really goes early childhood development that enriches the lives of young families. And we really looked at that as that has a big value to that. There's a big meaning to it, not just sell more products. It's about giving back and meaning something to the consumer that actually has a good benefit. And if you can enrich a mom and a kid as they're going through those first 5 years of their lives, that's a wonderful thing.
No, it's a spectacular thing, and I want to get to digital media. Obviously, one of your expertise is in a second, but there's so much conversation about education these days, and what's right, what's wrong, what's this, what's that. You're involved in education.
Yeah, well, you're educating kids as they go through the first few years of their life, different education, different ways to approach it. We like to talk about learning, the early childhood development side of the education. And we know that a child in those first 2 years will develop so significantly in the changes they go through, whether it's the first steps, walking, crawling, or the moments in between as they go through that journey.
Well, related to that, digital media, social media has basically taken over our worlds, and you have to, get out, who you are, your brand, I assume safety, how you educate, etc. There's a lot of disruptive technology going on. There's a lot of leaders in business, I hear it all the time, that are somewhat overwhelmed as to what to do, how to do it. There's, and the actions or non-actions they take, as business leaders. Give us your overview, your big picture thoughts on all that.
Yeah, well, I joined Fisher Price about a year and a half ago. Mattel moved me out here to Buffalo to enjoy some snow from the sun of LA. But one of the key things we had to do was embrace the millennial mom. And the way that millennial moms and millennials in general are experiencing and learning about brands is foundationally very different than the consumers of the past, the Gen Xers. So it forced us to have a conversation here about how do we want to talk and how do we want to highlight our brand in the social media ecosphere. And whether it's Facebook or Pinterest or Tumblr, Twitter, just make sure we have the right footprint for where that consumer is. I think one of the big challenges is making sure you're at a meaningful place where there's enough installed base. Don't get caught up in, there's a lot of different social media areas out there, but making sure that your consumer is there and that your brand can be activated in a meaningful way in that place is also key, because we all have finite budgets and you have to pick and choose very smartly.
Well, how do you pick and choose? I mean, whether it's small business or big corporation, I probably told you this. I heard one business leader told me, it used to be I can have everybody in my office, we talk heart to heart and figure out what we need to do, what we don't need to do, and then everybody leaves and does it. Now he was telling me now, before the meeting's over, it's on Twitter, basically.
Yeah, yeah, you want that to happen, but I think it's getting out there in front of the millennials and talking. I've done something here at FisherPrice where we call it the Millennial Board. And I go out and grab a coffee or lunch with a bunch of millennials, and I ask them, where are you guys learning about things? What are you guys experiencing? And then you have to go touch and feel it and play with it yourself. Getting involved in those different formats, you can't just assign it to somebody. You actually have to go see what consumers are saying and really develop a base of knowledge and then hire people around that actually live and breathe it. The way that the social media interconnectivity of all those different platforms is so different for some senior executives that when you're in your 20s and you're playing with it, it's something you've grown up on very naturally.
How about internationally? How do you approach digital media for different cultures? Do you have different toys, different products going to different countries because of that? How do you market it? How does that all work?
Yeah, I mean, the social media platform, I think one of the things you have to be cautious of or at least acknowledge, when you push out your marketing message, it glows out globally nowadays. And how you say that, whatever message you're sending has to be consistent around the globe, because otherwise you're going to get a very different story anywhere you go. We just did a big partnership with Shakira. She's probably the most digitally connected millennial mom on the planet. And one of the reasons we picked her was the fact that she is acknowledged in markets, even outside the U.S., that with the same message on early childhood development. She has a great foundation, but making sure we are consistent in that messaging. As we go to other markets, we look, probably the only most unique one out there is China. Their social media and even shopping footprint is so different than the U.S. that you have to communicate differently there. But to me, your brand is your brand, and you still have to be holistically similar. Just the platforms you push it out on are different.
It's interesting. This isn't early childhood stuff, but I saw a product under fire that one of the toy stores had out there that was whatever the guy's name was on Breaking Bad.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
there was a lot of complaints about on the package. They showed him, holding a meth bag, holding this, holding that, and whatever. I guess you haven't developed any North Korea type games or stuff based on what's going on these days, have you?
No. We do some different language variations of the different products we use, which are always important. That English to Spanish, English to Mandarin, but things that are a little bit sensitive like that, we would do our best to steer away.
I would, especially these days. I would think so. Do you? And it's a great point you brought up, because it's not like you can necessarily have digital media in this country, this country, and this country. When you send something out, it's out everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are different perceptions of how things are said. And when I traveled internationally, we taught people before they went into the countries their hand movement, their speech, whatever. And part of the reason I'm asking is it's a lot easier, and it's happening more and more, that even smaller companies go global way faster than they've ever done, because it's somewhat easier. How do you make sure that the message you're sending out here in the U.S. is not going to be misconstrued in China or France or wherever?
Well, we're fortunate, and we have offices in most major markets around the globe. And so when we're pushing our message, we're pushing it to our local office, who then make sure we can manage through the cultural nuances and make sure that we use the right words and terms. They locally adapt. Global platforms that are locally adaptable is kind of what we've been focusing on as a brand.
Do you find that with respect to the education part, early childhood is the same whether you're here or in France or in Africa or wherever?
Yeah, early childhood development is critical in any market you go to. And in fact, we find some cultural nuances in China. They want their kids to learn at earlier ages, and so we tweak our tagline. We don't adjust it too dramatically, but they really want their kids to start learning even with the products they use in the 2 to 3 year old range. And so making sure you're bringing in those cultural nuances onto your brand is really critical to success.
So let me ask you, with respect to your team, how do you recruit? How do you determine the type of people to bring on? with respect to, in this particular case, well, two parts, that you're developing the right products, and secondly, people that know how to get the message out.
Yeah, well, on the product side, we have an amazing group of designers that we recruited from some of the top creative schools, design institutes across the U.S. Right now, I'm looking for millennials. I want people that understand what I'm working through. That can take some of the experience that we have here on the campus and then apply from some of the more senior level, seasoned people to some of these new millennials that come in with a whole different aspect of the world. The charitable side of companies is very important to millennials, and bringing that aspect into the way you design and making sure we're hiring that right type of talent. On the marketing side, going to the top MBA programs and going out there and building an intern program so you get to get a test run on what the students are, and just bringing in the best talent for every role we have.
Yeah, you mentioned a point, real critical. The younger people these days are apt to accept or not accept, opportunities based on everything from sustainability to the environment to to the right educational product to do they like testing video games and sitting in a closed room with no windows their whole life. You find that a lot too with candidates?
Yeah, I'm learning. Be honest, it's something I've been learning a lot about, and I think any executive should really embrace it. I was surprised at a recent speaking engagement at Wharton, and when I went around the table, I had lunch with a number of students, how important sustainability or the charitable side of corporations is to the millennial generation, and incredibly important. I knew it was important, but when you hear it firsthand from every single student, it really resonated with me.
Yeah, with us too. Over the last several years, we've done a lot in sustainability and clean tech, and we've seen people will absolutely ask that question now and turn down a job if there's not a social responsibility.
Yeah, it's incredible, and has really driven some of our new design concepts. And even when I mentioned the Shakira partnership earlier, part of the reason it was her was it had nothing to do with her music, more so about her Barefoot Foundation, which is her early childhood development group, and how we want to partner with her because of that side of it. And a really important factor to FisherPrice, the brand.
Yeah, that's actually brilliant. A little bit of segue into what you said about going after millennials. There's a lot of diversity going on in boards these days, and because we do a fair amount of board searches and board advisory, and it's not the old days when it was the good old boys club, running the even the LPGA, the good old boys club, ran that until a lady we recently interviewed became the first female commissioner of that. So, boards are looking for that diversity as well, in the sense of not only black, white, women, but age, but expertise, culture, and ability to bring a certain vision to the CEO. So, what I want to ask you, in your experience, how would you advise a board, or how would you see the makeup of a board should be with respect to that diversity, with respect to somebody that could bring in digital media expertise to advise management?
I think you have to look at what your company is trying to achieve. And if digital is a big bet on the talent that you want to bring in, having board members that understand that side of things, whether it's the millennial or whether it's social media, but having someone that's versed is helpful to guide the growth of any company.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So last question on this part is, young entrepreneur starting his own business, what kind of advice would you give him?
Be nimble. I mean, I think the startup costs, if it's a product based, something like an Amazon, the barriers to entry are incredibly low nowadays, so there's a benefit to that. It's also make your bets and make your picks wisely. You can't you'll hear a lot of conversations about every social media platform out there and every internet platform that's going on, but you got to be smart in how you make your bets and pick wisely. You can't go out and do them all. And you're better off doing 2 or 3 of them really well than doing 10 of them very averagely. And I always say, choose wisely and make a bet, and if you're wrong, so be it, and then learn from that.
No, it's as my Brit friends would say these days, that's brilliant. Okay, a couple quick personal
Yep.
questions. Do you have a pet?
Pardon me? Do I have a pet?
Do you have
No.
any pets?
We have my daughter's number one thing on her Christmas list this year, a dog. And part of moving to New York was there's a lot more land up here in Western New York, and we would get a dog, and we've not withheld that side of the bargain yet. So we will see if my wife breaks down because I travel a ton, so it means she has to take on the added responsibility.
All right. Well, we're doing a whole project on that was recommended to us called Pets and Their Executives. So we'll have to get you
Oh
involved in
no.
that one. It's a good one. Do you have a favorite activity or sport?
Well, my son plays hockey. I think I've been inundated with kid sports with a son that's 9 and a daughter that's 11. He joined all the hockey teams up here in Buffalo when we moved, and then my daughter is a gymnast, and so I probably spend more time at their sporting events. But if I get time, I'm a big time USC football supporter, and I try to fly out to LA a couple times a year to catch some games and brainwash my kids early in life.
Smart move. Do you have a favorite type of food that you like to eat?
Indian food. Living in the UK for the last couple of years before moving here, you learn to love Indian food, and so anytime I can get it, I'm all in for Indian food.
Awesome. How about a favorite type of music to listen to while you're eating the Indian
Oh,
food?
uh, anytime you can get a little Coldplay or Jimmy Buffett would be my two.
All right. It's 5:30 somewhere,
Yes.
right? Well, listen, thanks so much for your insights and perspectives. It's really a value to our audience, and we wish you all the best for the holiday.
Mark, thank you for your time, and happy holidays to you and your family.